You are on Tips and Streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Tips and Streams. I'm Koken, and I hope you're doing well and feeling locked in wherever you're listening from. All right, let's get to the daily picks. I've got 4 NBA matchups on the card today, so buckle up. We're diving straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Houston Rockets and Detroit Pistons. When I break down this Rockets-Pistons matchup, I immediately circle one thing that matters more than raw talent: context. And in this spot, the context strongly favors Detroit. I'm looking at a Houston team that is coming off a physically draining road battle that went the distance. Regardless of effort or execution, that kind of game leaves a mark. Now they walk into Detroit, where the Pistons have quietly turned their home floor into one of the toughest environments in the league. That combination alone already puts Houston at a disadvantage before the ball even goes up. Detroit's recent form tells me this team is operating with confidence and structure. What stands out to me is not just the wins, but how they are winning. The Pistons are defending at an elite level, protecting the rim, controlling the glass, and forcing opponents into uncomfortable possessions. Every possession against them feels earned, not gifted. When I watch this group, I see discipline on the defensive end and patience on offense, even when key players are not at full strength. What I really respect about this Pistons team is their balance. They don't rely on one single scorer to carry the night. If the game slows down, they can win it in the paint. If it turns physical, they have bodies that can absorb contact and still finish plays. That depth matters in games like this, especially against an opponent dealing with fatigue and rotation gaps. On the other side, Houston is talented, no doubt. They have high-end scoring ability and can flip momentum quickly when shots fall. But this is not an ideal matchup for them. Detroit's ability to contest shots, limit second chances, and stay disciplined without fouling directly attacks Houston's preferred rhythm. Add in the slow tempo both teams naturally drift into, and every mistake becomes magnified. From a tactical standpoint, this feels like a grinded-out game where margins matter. I expect long possessions, fewer easy looks, and stretches where scoring comes at a premium. In those situations, I trust the team that is rested, structured, and playing at home. So when I put everything together, the scheduling spot, the defensive profiles, the home court edge, and the overall consistency, my angle becomes clear. I'm taking the Detroit Pistons to cover the 3-point spread at home. I believe Detroit controls the pace, absorbs the pressure, and does enough across 4 quarters to stay within the number and put themselves in position to win this game late. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Phoenix Suns and Atlanta Hawks. All right, let's break this one down properly, because this matchup deserves more than a surface-level take. When I look at this game, I see 2 teams moving in very different directions right now. Atlanta is still searching for consistency, while Phoenix looks like a group that knows exactly who it is and how it wants to win basketball games. Atlanta comes into this one after finally stopping the bleeding with a close win over Memphis. That win mattered, no doubt. It showed effort, toughness, and some late-game composure. Jalen Johnson continues to be the engine of this team, doing a bit of everything and carrying a heavy load on both ends. I respect that. But when I zoom out and look at the bigger picture, I still see a Hawks team that struggles to sustain defensive focus for 48 minutes, especially at home against disciplined opponents. Defensively, Atlanta plays fast, sometimes too fast for its own good. The pace creates offense, but it also opens the door to breakdowns, transition mistakes, and easy looks for teams that value ball movement and shot selection. And that's exactly where Phoenix becomes a nightmare matchup. The Suns are playing controlled, grown man basketball right now. What stands out to me isn't just the wins, but how they're winning. They absorb runs, flip momentum with one strong quarter, and close games without panic. I've watched this team on the road lately, and the confidence travels with them. They don't rely on chaos, they rely on execution. Phoenix does a great job forcing opponents into uncomfortable possessions, especially late in the shot clock. They generate turnovers, slow the game when needed, and punish mistakes with efficient offense. Devin Booker continues to set the tone, not just as a scorer, but as a decision maker who understands when to attack and when to control the flow. That kind of presence matters in a building like Atlanta, where momentum can swing quickly. I also pay close attention to trends, and Phoenix has been extremely reliable when facing teams that are still trying to figure themselves out. They've consistently taken care of business against losing teams, especially in night games, and they've done it by staying composed when the pressure rises. Atlanta, on the other hand, has struggled to follow up wins with another strong performance. Yes, the Hawks have had success against Phoenix in this building in the past. I don't ignore that. But this version of the Suns feels different. It's deeper, more balanced, and far more mentally solid than previous years. Atlanta's energy can keep this game competitive for stretches, but I don't trust them to win the discipline battle over 4 quarters. When I put everything together, current form, road confidence, defensive consistency, and late-game execution, the edge is clear to me. I'm riding with Phoenix here. My money is on the Suns to go into Atlanta, stay poised, control the tempo, and walk out with a hard-earned road win. The third prediction for today is for the game between the Sacramento Kings and the Cleveland Cavaliers. When I look at this matchup in Cleveland, I honestly don't see a game I'm excited to bet on, and that alone tells you a lot. This is one of those ugly spots where logic, trends, and gut feelings are all pulling in different directions. Still, if I'm forced to choose a side, I know exactly where I'm leaning. Cleveland comes into this one playing uneven basketball, but I've liked the way they've competed recently. They just dragged Charlotte into a half-court grinder and won it with defense, discipline, and patience. That kind of game tells me this team still knows how to lock in when it wants to. Donovan Mitchell remains the engine of everything they do. When Cleveland needs a bucket or a momentum swing, the ball finds him, and more often than not, he delivers. I don't love how inconsistent the supporting cast has been, but at home, this group tends to play with more edge and urgency. Sacramento, on the other hand, has completely worn me out. I've watched them lose games in the same way over and over again. Sloppy stretches, defensive breakdowns, and long scoring droughts that kill any rhythm they build. They've dropped 3 straight, and the body language lately has not been great. Traveling across the country to face a team that just showed real defensive pride is not an ideal spot for a Kings squad that already struggles to stay connected for 48 minutes. Yes, Cleveland has burned bettors all season. I'm fully aware of how unreliable they've been when laying points, especially in big spreads. I've faded them plenty of times myself, but there comes a point where I stop overthinking it and call it what it is. Sacramento looks tired, disjointed, and mentally checked out. Even when they get decent offensive stretches, it rarely lasts long enough to keep them competitive deep into games. This matchup also sets up well for Cleveland stylistically. If the Cavaliers control the pace, limit turnovers, and avoid giving Sacramento easy transition chances, I expect the game to tilt quickly. Sacramento's offense doesn't scare me right now, and I don't trust them to exploit Cleveland's perimeter issues consistently enough to stay close. Now, let me be clear. This is not a game I'm recommending anyone attack aggressively. The volatility is real on both sides, and the spread is uncomfortable for all the obvious reasons. If you told me this turns messy late, I wouldn't argue with you. But my prediction is my prediction. I'm tired of Sacramento. I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm betting against them here, even knowing the risk. My money is on the Cavaliers to win and cover the 9.5 points at home. Personally, I advise staying away from this game, but if I'm putting my own cash down, I'm riding with Cleveland. Today's last prediction is for the game between the Toronto Raptors and Portland Trail Blazers. When I look at this matchup between Portland and Toronto, I see a game that looks straightforward on paper, but gets much more interesting once I dig into the rhythm, context, and momentum on both sides. This is exactly the kind of spot where recent form, situational basketball, and confidence matter more than season-long narratives. Toronto comes into Portland playing solid, organized basketball. I respect what they've built this season. They've shown they can win even when key pieces are missing, and I like the way their offense finds secondary scoring when the main options aren't fully available. They've had stretches where they lock in defensively, flip the switch after halftime, and overwhelm teams with pace and ball movement. When they're clicking, they look like a team that knows exactly who they are. But here's where I pause. I've watched enough NBA to know that not all wins travel well, and not all consistency holds up away from home. Toronto has had moments where they let teams hang around, especially in hostile buildings, and they haven't always punished opponents when they've had rest advantages. That matters to me in this spot. Now let's talk about Portland, because this is where my confidence really starts to build. I don't care about early season chaos or what this team looked like months ago. I care about what they're doing right now. Portland is playing confident, connected basketball, and they're doing it with a chip on their shoulder. They've stacked wins, they've covered numbers, and they've proven they don't fold just because they're on a tight schedule. What really jumps out to me is how comfortable this team has been in back-to-back situations. That tells me their legs aren't heavy and their mindset is sharp. They come out aggressive, they don't wait to field a game, and they trust their rotations. The ball doesn't stick, the energy is there, and they defend just enough to let their offense control the tempo. At home, this team feeds off the building. I've seen them turn third quarters into statement runs, forcing opponents into rush shots and bad decisions. Even when things get shaky, they respond. That resilience is hard to quantify, but after decades of watching this league, I trust it when I see it. Toronto is the more polished team overall, but Portland is the hotter team, the more urgent team, and the team that understands this exact moment. For me, this comes down to rhythm versus reputation, and I'm siding with rhythm every time. My final pick for this game is the Trailblazers to win at home against the Raptors in Portland. I trust their momentum, their confidence, and their ability to rise in this spot. This is my play, and I'm riding with Portland to get it done.